Right, as you can see, I've smashed the timing case cover off. I don't care anymore. This engine's doing my head in. Especially, you know, one thing upsets me, and then the whole project is like upsetting me. This viscous fan unit will not come off. I can't get to all the bolts on the oil pump to take the entire thing off so that I can change the oil pump and put this back on, because Ford, in their infinite wisdom, have put bolts behind plates and behind pulley wheels so that you can't get to them. So the bolts that are hidden, I'm having to actually, well, mechanics are having to rely on getting this off to get to them bolts. But what if, like with this engine, that's stuck? It makes no sense at all. Anyway, so I've got to something that I can take off. I'm going to be taking this fuel injection pump off. Now, I know what a lot of mechanics are going to say. You don't know whether it's at top dead centre or not. You don't know about all the timing. You don't know about this, that, the other. I don't care. I've got a pin-up kit somewhere in the loft. If not, you use various sized drill bits to hold these pulley wheels and the crank flywheel in the right place, and then you just put the timing belt on. So at this point in time, and I have done this job before, I've done the timing on a transit van before. Yes, it's a pain if you've not got it in top dead centre before you take it apart. You have to juggle that pulley wheel and the crank pulley wheel round until you can get that one lined up and that crankshaft lined up. This fuel pump's not critical. You don't actually have to have that timed up with the rest of the engine to put the belt back on, or at least to get the engine in a position to put that on, because you can adjust this pulley wheel. It's like free running, whereas this pulley wheel and the crank, they depend on each other not being in the way, because this is known as an interference engine. So if you try to turn the crank when the valves are in the way, the crank will stop because it'll strike the valves and you won't be able to turn it anymore. So what you have to do is turn the crank back a little bit, turn the valve, this operates the valves, turn the pulley wheel to operate the valves to move them to a different position, then try the crankshaft again. And you have to keep doing that until it's at top dead centre, until you can get the pin in the back. Then, unless it's 180 degrees out, which it could be, this pulley wheel, the locating pin which goes in that hole and through the back plate, the front plate of the engine, that will fit in the right place. The crank pin-up kit will fit in the right place, and then you just have to put this on and guess roughly where it goes. That's the timing hole, and it goes through the this front casting plate. So I can actually take this, I can slacken the timing belt off, which doesn't seem too bad, but I probably will put a new one on to be safe. And I'll more than likely put a new tensioner on to be safe, so that I know that the first time I start this, it's not going to go bang. So I think that's looking like either a 15 or a 17mm bolt there, and these look like 13s, and I'm not bothered about any of the other parts of the engine. I'm just going to take the timing belt off, take the fuel pump off, and then I think I'm going to call it a night, because all these videos that you've just been watching from the introduction to this engine until now is all at the same night. It is kind of late, not too late to be doing this, but too late to be banging around and shouting. So let's get I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll be good. I'll get a 17mm socket, and that's a 19, just in case. That is a 16, I guess the 17 mil didn't get put back. Ooh, it's bigger. It's definitely a 17. Let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, slightly more worn than I thought. Yeah, there's a 17, and we will have a. Oh, by the way, for anyone that is taking one of these timing covers off properly, it is Torx T40 that removes the bolts to hold the timing cover on. So let's slacken the adjuster off. Now technically I should be able to undo this bolt slightly and then give the timing belt a pull, and then that should release it. It is loose, it's looser than it was. It's just a case of now I either undo that completely and completely drop the tensioner off, which probably will be the best idea. Yep. Right, that can just go on the floor for a minute or two. Right, what I really should have done in hindsight is slackened these bolts off, because now I'm going to have to hold this pulley wheel see, with me being tired I'm not thinking straight, but let's see if I can use a pry bar to hold this while I undo the bolts. So taking this pulley wheel off will not release the fuel pump straight away. There is, I think it's 3 more bolts holding the fuel pump on behind this pulley wheel. And with this, what I will do is, I can't put the bolts back in, can I? Because they're on the fuel pump. I was going to say, once I've took this pulley wheel off, I'll put the bolts back in the pump, but I'm not keeping this pump, am I? I want a mechanical pump, so that's irrelevant. But what I will do, I'll put this pulley wheel and the this plate on the bench and put the bolts in the pulley wheel and the plate, so that I know where the bolts go. Then there's your shaft for your fuel pump, and I've made 13 wrong end rods. Oh, 10. Right, so there's these 3 bolts, and then there's some more bolts round the back. I'm going to have to move the light, and you might get blinded momentarily, but I need to be able to see what I'm doing more than the camera does at this point. So I have decided I need a mechanical fuel pump. There's nothing I can do about that. I've been Googling and watching other YouTube videos, and I figured out I can't use the electrical pump. So Dave, if you're watching, if you want to take the chance of having this pump back with a cracked cover, superficial case, you're more than welcome to it. You did say all the parts I don't want return, and I will. If you want a fully serviceable, you might say, fuel pump, I will quite happily buy you one without a cracked case, without a cracked cover. I broke it, I'll replace it. I don't mind. Now, interestingly enough, this is wet with diesel behind here, and it shouldn't be, which probably means that Dave won't want this back, that's definitely diesel, because that's an indication of the shaft seal inside the pump leaking. And when that happens, these pumps don't want to behave. You remember in the introduction video I said that I had a problem with one of my vans leaking fuel back to the tank? That's exactly what a leaking shaft seal does on a pump. So, right, regardless whether I broke it or not now, it's safe to say Dave would not have wanted this pump back, because it's faulty. It's shaft seals leaking. And he wouldn't have known that. You see the diesel on my finger there. He wouldn't have known that unless I'd taken this apart. So I've actually done a bit of diagnostic work for him. So now I know that that pump was faulty. That may well have been the reason why this van, or engine at least, was scrapped. It may well have been because the fuel pump had a leak and it wouldn't start. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a 17mm spanner. Apologies for the sound of the toolbox drawer. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to release all the diesel injection pipes. Now, this might be a chore in itself, because if I remember rightly, there's a metal bracket that holds all these fuel pipes together, and you have to undo that to actually release the pipes from the engine sometimes. Usually with the, everybody will be familiar with the term banana engine. Usually with them banana engines, which this kind of is but without those intakes, the fuel pipes, these injection pipes, go split through two of the holes in the intake manifold, and they are a nightmare to release. Again, Ford's infinite wisdom, they decided to split the pipes through two of the holes in the air intake, and then clip them together so that you couldn't release them without taking the air intake off. Sometimes, depends what tools you've got. If you're a professional garage, you've probably got a tool that would release them two pipes, the two pairs of pipes, sorry. But if you're just a DIYer that's collected tools over the years like myself, and you're just doing this for yourself or just a laugh in general, you probably won't have all the tools that you need, like a tool that would release those pipes from each other. I mean, to be honest, I think it's only like an 8mm bolt that's holding the plate together, but one 8mm bolt between friends can be a bit of a nightmare. So I'm going to release these pipes from the back of the pump, and I'm probably going to release the pipes from up top as well, because this particular intake, I think there's enough clearance to get the diesel injection pipes out from round the geez, this has been together for a while, this has. I thought I was going to bend the injector rather than undo the union then. It was that tight. Yes. And if you're wondering, I have done something like snapped an injector's top off completely trying to undo one of these injection pipes before. Yes, it does happen. One is right down there. Now, on the banana engine, the one with the banana shaped intakes that come all the way over the engine, sometimes you can fish a spanner in down the side of there and crack the union. But this one looks a little bit special because it's got a different air intake on it. Because turbo engines did have slightly different intakes. I don't know why they didn't use, I mean, the banana pipes, surely there would have been a way that Ford could have used the banana pipes with a turbo. Surely they didn't have to change the design of the air intakes just to fit a turbo on. They could have got away with like a piece of flexible pipe from the inlet, you know, the inlet manifold to the turbo. They could have, or is anyone familiar with the Ford Escort XR3i? That had like a metal intake extension pipe with the actual RS lettering on it. I think the Fiesta was the same. I think all the RS turbo engines were the same. And that had the intake pipe. It had a metal one with either rubber or silicon ends, and it basically went over the top of the engine. They could have done something similar with the air intake for the turbo on the Transit with the banana pipes. They could have got away with that because the air intake came out roughly in the same place this does, and the turbo was roughly in the same place. So I don't know why in hell they couldn't have used like, do they call them a rubber boot pipe? You know, like a boot shaped pipe, or, you know, like the RS pipe where it had a little bit of metal pipe and two silicon ends on it. I don't know why they couldn't have done that. Would have made it a lot cheaper for Ford. But I'm pretty convinced, again, tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty convinced that pipe was screwed anyway, so I'll just snap that off. It wasn't going back on. Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that there were no turbo Transit engines that had got the banana pipes. But like I say, hit me up in the comments if I'm wrong. If you've seen a banana engine with a turbo fitted, you're a better man than me. Or one. Oh, jeez. Yeah. I don't think these have been off for a long time. And they are a nightmare to get to. In fact, let me grab the lot to see whether I've cracked that one. Usually it's my knuckles that I crack more than the, you know, everything's close and everything's sharp on one of these engines. It's a bit of a nightmare, to be perfectly honest. Now, why would Ford do that? There's a casting for the air intake right in the way of the union, and you literally cannot get a spanner down there. And you've got the head of the injector right in the way too, and there's just not enough clearance to get the spanner in. I think I've cracked the pipe open, but now I just can't get to the damn union to turn it anymore. And you've got a water pipe at the other side of it. Yeah, I've cracked it. It's loose, but it's not wanting to. I've just realised I've got to tighten this up as well. Fun and games. This is going to be fun. Right, I've got my thumb and my finger on it. Please don't go tight, loose, tight, loose, tight, loose. I think it is. I wish I could get you in a bit better position because obviously you can't see what I'm doing just here, but for now I think you're in about the best position you can possibly be without me breaking my phone. And I can explain what I'm doing because I like talking, I don't mind. Apart from when I go quiet when I'm trying to bolt off. Right, that is the injection pipes. I'll just move them up and out of the way for now, which they are, and release my cable, come around the other side of the engine, and I think these are, let's try a 13 on them. No, they're either a 14 or a 15 for those two diesel pipes, but they are the ones that were snapped in the video previously, so I don't have to take them off. In fact, I can be a hooligan and just rip them off. There's one. Bin fodder. By the time I'm done with this engine, I'll need a skip to get rid of the rubbish. Right, so I've got two choices now. No, I haven't actually. I can only do this one way. Basically, there's like a funny L-shaped bracket behind this pump that holds the pump onto the engine block, and it's got two what look like 13mm bolts holding it in. Once I've got this off, I will show you the diesel pump, if I can find my extension, and I can show you that bracket. So let's have a look. I'm going to end up bending the dipstick. And again, I'm going to put the bolts back in the engine block where this plate for the pump came off. I'll leave them there for a minute. Did I get all them bolts out? Yes. This should now, technically, unless there's any more bolts hidden somewhere, this should, if I get another mallet, yeah, it's moving. And oh, you know. Right, put the light back on its stand, and there's the fuel injection pump, and that's the bracket I was talking about. I've just taken those two bolts off there. I don't know whether you can see it. I've taken two bolts out of the engine block there on that plate, and unfortunately that is scrap. I'll be good. I'll put the bolts back in like I said I was going to do. And there, piece of plastic off the top of the injection pump. Right, I do believe I'm going to leave the video at that, because I may well have to get a friend round to help me hold this while I undo the nut. I have got two sons and they will help me, but I don't think between me and my sons, they've got very limited mechanical knowledge. They only know what I've previously asked them to help me with, and they could have forgot about that by now, because they've been busy with the GCSEs and you name it, work. One of my lads went to McDonald's for a couple of months, I think it was, but he unfortunately started suffering from IBS, so he had to quit. There was just no way that he could carry on working at a food place with that condition, so unfortunately he's not working there anymore. But obviously with him working there and just fresh out of the GCSEs at school, he's not really helped me a lot. He's done a few things helping me with engines. It's mostly passing me spanners that I've asked him to do, because like with this fan and various bolts and injector pipes and things like that. I've always said to the boys, if they break something, fine, I'm going to be unhappy. You know, we're not the quietest of families, so it'd probably cause an argument, and the argument would probably get quite heated, and we'd all hate each other, for a better word, and it'd cause a fight. So I've always said to them, if I break something because I haven't let them do it, yes, fair enough, I can shout, but they can walk away and I can walk away, and 5 minutes later we'll all agree I broke it. There's only myself that I can shout at for breaking that part. They won't get the blame. And unfortunately, because I've been fund constrained, you might say, I've not really let them loose doing this sort of thing. So they've got very limited mechanical knowledge, which is fair enough. I mean, there's people with less mechanical knowledge than my sons, to be fair. There's people that aren't interested in mechanics at all. There's people that have never been interested in mechanics. They probably don't know what an engine looks like. They probably never lifted the bonnet of their car. They went through school, did quite well. They got a 9 to 5, they drive to work and back every morning and night. If the car doesn't start, they call a mechanic. And it's people like me that do this sort of thing, you know, or real mechanics or DIYers, you know. But there's people that have never, they've lived all their life and never known what an engine looks like. They've probably not even seen one on television, or if they have, they've probably not realised it's an engine, you know. There are people that have literally zero mechanical knowledge. So yeah, I've been working on engines like this all my life because I've always been fund constrained, you might say. I've never really had a top paying job. So a lot of mechanical things that I've done in the past have been necessity. My dad, he had a little mechanical knowledge. He had things like starter motors, alternators pack up on him, so he couldn't start the car, it wasn't charging, and he refused, he begrudged spending the money on a mechanic, you know, to do the starter motor on a very basic car, Nissan Sunny or something like that, you know, really old, really basic, really simple, 2 wires and 3 bolts. He would rather not have taken that to a garage to have it repaired. Plus the fact, if your starter motor's gone, how do you get it to a garage in the first place? You know, if your alternator's died and your battery won't charge, it won't start. So how do you get the car to a garage in the first place without calling the recovery companies out? And if you don't want to pay for that, you might as well, this was my dad's philosophy, you might as well walk to the shop where you can get car parts from, buy the part that you need, walk back home with it, if it's just a starter motor or something simple, you know, and light, fit the thing to your car, and then that negates having to go to a garage because the car's repaired then. And I've pretty much followed in his footsteps like that. I take after my dad quite a lot. Unfortunately, my dad passed away 2 years ago yesterday, when I first got this engine, and this has reminded me so much of my dad. This is the sort of thing that my dad would have been doing 30 years ago, 40 years ago, in this very garage, before I was born. You know, my mum would open the door and shout, "Ross, do you want a cup of coffee?" And he'd shout, "Yeah." And my mum would bring him a cup of coffee, and then, just like my granddad, my mum's dad, he'd leave his coffee to go cold and he'd be doing and working on an engine. But yeah, this is kind of not just an important project because I've got to get it done, and it's not just a hobby because I want to do it. It's I've put a lot of time and effort into thinking about buying this particular engine and swapping it for the other one. And honestly, I'm doing this for bringing back memories of my dad as well. I do want to involve my two boys, but at the minute, it's winter, it's freezing cold in this garage. I don't want to spend more than 5-10 minutes, half an hour in here at a time. I don't expect them to do that either. Plus, there's not a great deal that I can do yet. I'm waiting on funds for parts coming through, and unfortunately, the only thing that I can do at the minute is take things off the engine and prepare it for the new parts. I can't put anything back on. In fact, that's an interesting thought that I had. I've got to lift this engine into a generator housing that's on the back of a pickup truck. Now, I'm stripping this down, ready to put fresh parts on, but I'm thinking, do I leave the parts, the new parts, off for a couple of reasons? One, it lowers the total weight of the engine so that I could probably lift it with the engine crane easier and manoeuvre it easier into the generator housing. And two, if, say for instance, I was to put a brand new fan on with perfect blades right now, and then I went to engine crane this into the cabinet and caught the door on the cabinet and the smashing of the fan blade off, that would cause more work for me. You know, I'd rather leave all the new parts off so that I know that they're not going to get damaged, and it lowers the weight of the engine, and get this block in the generator case, get it on the engine mounts, then start putting the new parts on while it's in situ. I think that's going to be a better idea than fully rebuilding this engine here, then trying to lift a heavy engine with very expensive, brittle, fragile parts into a housing where I could potentially damage pretty much everything I've put on. So yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So what I will do, I've got the alternator hanging off at the minute, so I will probably disconnect the pipe work for the alternator and remove it completely so that that's even less weight, because these alternators are hella heavy. This one in particular, because it's got like a kind of an oil pump on the back. I mean, there is an oil pump, I think there's an oil pump behind this fan. See, I got that wrong earlier. This is the water pump pulley. I think this is an oil pump pulley, or at least oil goes through this casting to give the viscous coupling its temperature so that it knows when to engage and disengage to cool the engine down or not. So what that's the plan. What I'm going to do, disconnect the alternator, and I'll probably take the thermostat housing off because they're very brittle. That's plastic, Bakelite kind of plastic. They're brittle. If you bang that, and it's right next to the hook that you lift the engine with, if you bang that, that'll smash, and then that'll be more expense. So it's probably worth just taking that off. I don't think I've got to take the air intake manifold off, but do I not take the air intake manifold off to lessen the weight? It's aluminium, it's cast aluminium, so it's not exactly going to be very brittle. I mean, if I give it a really, really good whack, then yeah, it probably will smash. But just giving it a little knock into a generator cabinet door is not going to affect it. It's not going to break it. And to be honest, with it being cast aluminium, it's not incredibly heavy. This entire air intake probably doesn't weigh as much as the alternator, because the alternator's got magnets and coils of wire wrapped inside it, and like a shaft, and all of them moving parts, and yeah, that's why they're so heavy. They're basically a motor that works in reverse. You wind it round and it provides electricity instead of using electricity to turn. So yeah, that's coming off. The alternator's coming off. Some of these or maybe all of these wires that you can see are going to come off, because I can replace them with the gauge wires that I was telling you about on the previous video, or the introduction video. These pipes, these can all come off. They're vacuum pipes. They can just get rubber stoppers put on the ends so that no air bleeds. And yeah, I'm probably most likely going to leave it as a absolute bare engine to put inside that cabinet. Then once it's in there, I will start putting parts on. However, before I can lift this one in, I've got to take that Chinese engine out. So depending on the weather, it could be any time between now and March that I'm actually doing the next step. I really do want to get that Chinese engine out as quick as I can, but I am not going out in freezing cold temperatures and pouring rain. No, that's not happening. I'd rather stay warm and wait for February, March time for it to warm up a little bit before I do anything outside. But what I can do, I can order parts, see if they fit, see if they're the right part, put them on the workbench, ready for safekeeping. Well, for safekeeping, ready to go on here. So yeah, I will leave it at that, because I've been rambling on. Sorry for rambling on for so long, but I'm giving you a bit of my life story, as well as you being entertained with seeing me get frustrated trying to fix a transit van engine. Let me know what you think. The comment section is down below, as you know. Any comments are welcome, negative or positive. If it's a negative comment, I'm probably learning from that, so it's not actually negative in that respect. You know, if I'm doing something wrong, hey, we've all got to learn. So catch you later. Oh, and sorry for these videos being raw and uncut, but I've got a rap YouTube channel that I did a lot of editing on, because I got a lot of time on my hands in my bedroom at the time, and the videos look a hell of a lot better than this channel's videos. However, there's two reasons I'm not doing edited videos. One, with this particular project, I want you to see exactly what's going on, and I want you to see everything I do. I want you to see every spanner that I pick up, every socket that I use, pry bars, where to put things, running through putting bolts back in the block where you need them, so that you know which bolts go where. I pretty much want you to see everything that I'm doing. That's why I'm not going to edit these videos. Fair enough, if I know that I'm going to swear a lot, I will probably pause the video and say, I'll do this bit now, and then I'll introduce you back into the video later on. And because I do swear a lot, and it's not very nice. It's not professional, but sometimes it does calm me down. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. See you later.